So we're picking up from the first video where we imported that text data into the SPSS package, and so now we need to have a little bit of information about how SPSS is organized. You'll see that the front page of SPSS looks about like a spreadsheet, but there are two tabs down here that you need to know. One is the data view that we're looking at, which is the spreadsheet organization, and the other is the variable view that has the variable names. You can move them around. You can have string. It identifies as string variables, so the one that we told the system to import as strings are labeled as strings. There's width. You can change the width of the fields. You can change the width of the actual presentation, which is over here in the column. You can add labels. It'll tell you whether it's nominal, scalar, or sometimes it'll tell you ordinal as well, but you have to change that. So generally speaking, we have kind of the background. This is how you organize the variables, move them around, and everything else. This is where the data is actually presented. We're going to come back and fix some of these columns in a bit. But we also need to take a look at the output file. So this is your output file, and this essentially is your log file. And so it'll show kind of get data. We went through a text file. We went through the basic incident text, and it brought all these things in. Execute data set, brought it forward. Right? So let's quickly save both of these. First, let's save on the desktop. Let's just label it pols6123-project1. And you'll notice down here it pops up as an SPV. The output files are kind of the blue cornered, and they have an SPV extension. We go to the data file. Let's go ahead and save that, and we'll need to because the next step it may crash and burn. So we want the original import data available. So let's click on the button. Hopefully this thing will come up. It's really big, so it takes a while to kind of to activate. Let's see. Let's try file save as. Maybe that'll work. We go to desktop. Do the same thing. pols6123-project1. And then we'll go down here. We'll save. Downsize it, and you'll see over here we have our two files. The 6123 project 1, which has the log file, again SPV, and then we have the actual data file, the SAV file, which is all of the different information that we brought in from that original text file. Okay, so one thing that we want to do is we've got kind of the column widths here are all over the place, and so we can't really see the variable names. So let's fix that very quickly before we move on to some bigger issues. Let's click on variable view. The field width, you want to be careful changing that because it imports and it kind of automatically tells you how wide the width is. If you reduce this, so say if you reduce state from 2 to 1, then you would just have the first letter of the two-letter state ID. So you don't want to mess with that one all that much. The columns, however, is fair game, so let's go through and just kind of change these. 8s are usually pretty good, not 82s. 8s are better. So let's do 8 there. Delete there. Let's see. Function delete. Or we're just going to have to click up. 8 there. And you get the idea. I'll go through and change. I'll pause for a minute, and then I'll change all of them. We'll come back, and we'll take a look at it. Magic of pause technology. I went through and I changed all these to 8s and 12s. And let's take a look at what the final product is. So if we go here, now we've got kind of the full identifiers, and it looks a little bit better as far as the spreadsheet goes. Let's go from the far left all the way over to the far right. And you'll see it's kind of a little bit better organized, and we've got kind of a good starting package. So let's save that. And then make sure you put that away. From here on, we're going to be working with kind of the select function to tell the package to identify certain fire departments and delete everybody else. And that gets to be really complicated. So you want to save this as a good starting point in case you have to return to it. Now the first step in narrowing down our database is we actually have to create a new variable. One issue that occurs with this particular set of fire information is that the FDID number is established at the state level, and so it's not unique across all 50 states. There's going to be some states where that number overlaps, and so that will cause us a lot of issues if we would actually just import on the FDID number. So what we have to do to be safe is we have to kind of make a unique identifier, and to do that we're going to create a new variable that basically combines the state identifier and the FDID number, and we're going to call it FDID2. And what that will do is it'll give us a unique identifier for every state and every fire department within those states. And so that's what we need to actually import and select data. Okay, let's begin by doing our new variable. So we're going to click Transform, Compute Variable. We're going to put in our new variable name, which is going to be FDID2. Make sure that it's lowercase because it's got to match up with another file label in another file. We're going to don't have to worry about the label per se, but we do have to make it a string variable, and we want to make it a 7 width variable because it's got 2 for the state identifier and 5 for the FDID value. So let's continue on. The string function we're looking for here is going to be something called concatenate, which basically just means to merge 2 cells together. Concat, we'll click on that one, we'll up arrow. We're going to use another string function in conjunction with this, and it's the right trim function. This is important because you don't want any kind of extra spaces or things hanging off your field entries, because if you merge it together, it'll put spaces in between the 2 variables and things of that nature. So let's put right trim. We'll click that up. We'll click state over there and right arrow it right into there. So it's going to right trim state and put it in our new string function. Let's go right trim 1. Let's go FDID. Click that one in there. Need to take that little question mark out of it, and that is going to be our string expression. So we're going to trim those 2 variables. We're going to smush them together into a new variable. So let's click OK, and hopefully it'll work. And so it runs. It always brings up your new document, your output file. So let's lowercase that. One of the things about this file is it's so big that a lot of times these cell entries will actually blur out while it's recalculating. So let's kind of incrementally merge over there to see where our new variable is. Our new variable's at the very end, so all it did was it took AK and put the FDID number along with it. It's the variable we're going to use to identify the departments that we're interested in. Let's go to the Variable View tab, and because we have that FDID number all the way to the back, and we don't really want it there, let's first get it down to 8 like the rest of ours. Let's go ahead and move that one all the way to the top. So the variable view menu allows us to move variables around. So let's just click on it and hold and then run it to the top. Slowly but surely it'll get there. You have to kind of go back and forth at the very top to make it go. And I'm going to put it at the very top, right in front of the state and the FDID. Let's go back to data view. Let's go back to the very beginning of our file. And lo and behold, this is the key variable that we're going to use to identify our other cases. Okay, very good. Okay, so we have our data file ready to go, but the important thing we need to do is save this file again. So let's just save it, and once you save it, it'll go to the same place that you had on the desktop. And now we'll have the complete imported file, and it will have the good identifier along with it as well. And that's going to be our baseline moving forward. If we have problems at the next stage, then we'll come back to this kind of original SPSS file and then restart ourselves. Let's go to the D2L system and let's pick up the other file that we're going to need. It's the file that we're going to identify our potential sample from that SPSS database. So let's click on our D2L system out here. This was the original FDID census that I showed you earlier. This document had the text file that we just imported and then created the new identifier. This file actually was the string format. It told you which ones to label as strings. The last file is going to be this 50 counties data. And so we need to import this and open it up, and I think you'll see what we're going to do. So I'm just going to download this thing. It'll pop up, and then I'll just say open. You should get a SPSS file, or actually an Excel file open up. And I'll maximize this, and these are our 50 counties. And you'll notice in the far left-hand corner is that same FDID value, and those are the values that we're going to identify. We're essentially going to ask SPSS to go out and look for any fire incident that is associated with this column of fire departments. And that's not going to be an easy thing to do. We actually have to do a little bit of machine language. We have to go into another side of SPSS in order to do that. At this point, we're getting a little past the 10-minute mark on the YouTube video, so we'll need to stop here. And I'll pick up with kind of beginning the process of manipulating this data.